She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. With a love like that, you know you should be glad. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's Disney Plus review of the documentary Beatles 64. This is a film that is directed by David Tedeschi. Alright, guys, so the Beatles are a very obscure band that probably a lot of people don't know or have ever heard of. They may have created some songs. I don't know. I don't know much about them, which is really not true. We, of course, know who the Beatles are. They're one of the most influential bands of all time. Everybody pretty much loves them. Some people don't, which is fine. But for the most part, the Beatles are one of the most beloved bands of all time. And the way they created music is still influencing musicians today. Now, with that said, there pretty much isn't a stone left unturned when it comes to what the Beatles did and how they did it. But here we have a new documentary that is called Beatles 64, and it is about how they became hugely successful leaving Britain and coming to America. And it shows the fans, it shows celebrities like David Lynch. It literally is a love letter to how the Beatles kind of became who they were over the 10-year career, including the time when they were on the Ed Sullivan Show, which once again, this is really about their kind of coming to America and the popularity that ensued. So yeah, that's Beatles 64. It's a documentary that has talking heads, is a documentary that has interviews, and it's about the Beatles' influence into America. So it's hard to really want to hate a documentary like this because, like the Beach Boys and I think the Fleetwood Mac documentary coming up, it really is fun to watch these types of documentaries. They may not be the most deep when it comes to exactly what they are doing, but they are what they are. They represent a part of who these famous bands and famous singers were. So here we have a documentary. It's produced by Martin Scorsese. We had one that came out a couple years ago that was directed by Peter Jackson. And my honest feeling of this documentary is it's a very entertaining one. It's definitely has a lot of love put into it. A lot of love through people that, found solace in the Beatles, people who became huge fanatics to the Beatles, young people who are now grown adults or have grandkids that can show off like their true love of who the Beatles were. And then there's also, interviews with, of course, the Fab Four, whether it be Paul McCartney or Ringo Starr or John Lennon or George Harrison. There are many interviews in this hour and I think 40-minute documentary. Once again, I have to say that as much as I enjoyed this documentary, it doesn't add anything new. This is just another documentary. I actually feel the Peter Jackson one added so much interesting material that this one doesn't. That is quite a shame. And I'm not discarding what is being done here because there's some interesting stuff. And once again, you get interviews with the four band members, but you also get interviews with people that love the Beatles and why they love the Beatles. So there's nothing wrong with this documentary, but I feel like it's been done before. We know all about the Ed Sullivan Show. We know all about how these people were changed and how they kind of went into a very interesting direction with their group. And it feels like a very by the numbers book that has been cleaned up and spruced for a Disney Plus release. And I just find that a little dejected, to be fairly honest. Once again, I felt the one that Peter Jackson did really delved into something really interesting. Yes, we know all about that, but there were 4 episodes, and those 4 episodes kind of gave us some really interesting material and added some interesting stuff. And whether you feel differently or not about how they graded the quality of the film itself, there was some interesting stuff there that really helped into that. I think it was like Abbey Road or whatever they were making at the time. And I just don't feel like this does this. I really don't. I think it's fun to watch some behind the scenes stuff because it does use footage of the people who were the documentarians for when the Beatles came to America. And there's stuff that you probably haven't seen, but once again, it's kind of hard to make a documentary that you know so much about a particular band and really truly make it original. And that's a shame. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's just I don't feel like this is a very original documentary. I don't feel like it does anything new. It just feels like a thing where Disney Plus was like, hey, this seems like an interesting documentary that'll get us subscribers. That's just kind of what it is. And it does have Martin Scorsese's producing credit behind it, but that can only take it so far. It has to bring something new to the table, and I just don't feel like this documentary does. I just feel like it's kind of running paint by numbers in a lot of respects. So, but in the end, to kind of end this documentary review, there is some fun to be had in this documentary. It's not a bad documentary. It's well presented. It's well put together. It has a lot of cool stuff to it. But if you know the Beatles and you know all about them, there's nothing gonna be new. You just learn that like David Lynch loves the Beatles. I mean, that's an interesting thing. And a lot of like R&B artists love the Beatles for what they are. But I don't know. It's a very slick documentary, but it's nothing more than surface level, to be fairly honest. It doesn't really go into too much depth. So that's gonna be my take on Beatles 64. It is now on Disney Plus, so definitely check it out if you're a Beatles fan. Just know it's not gonna give you anything new. That's the only thing. So there you go. But with that said, thank you so much for watching my review of course, Beatles 64 on Disney Plus. I appreciate it. Comments below. What is your favorite Beatles song? What do you like the Beatles? So on and so forth. But otherwise, if you like what you see on the channel, awesome. Hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at top to find what's coming next. If you like the video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.